Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. I'd like to call this meeting to order. And just before we start, I'd like to acknowledge that we are not the first people to live, work, and play on these lands. Please join me in thanking the indigenous people and their stewardship of the traditional and treaty lands that we now enjoy alongside them, and to acknowledge our Quaker history within the Township of Uxbridge. All right, any disclosures of pecuniary interest, general nature thereof? Yes, Councillor Beach?
Yes, I do. Subject matter is Grain Boy Correspondence 168, and it is I'm declaring a perceived conflict of interest.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, are there any announcements? We'll start with Bruce. Oh, review of items not listed on the agenda. I could have done it in a different order.
Through you, Your Worship, there are two addendums on the agenda for tonight. One with a report to council as well as a bylaw, and then the other with a piece of correspondence.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay,
now
you can do announcements. Thanks, Bruce.
Just two quick things. We've got Springtide coming up. There's starting to be some buzz around town already. It's April 26th and 7th. Still a little ways out, but if you're wanting to buy one of those wristbands, they're on sale, discounted price till Saturday, I think it is. Saturday, May 1st of March. So get them soon if you want to save a couple dollars. And the other thing is Wednesday is Pink Shirt Day. Willie, wear a pink shirt.
For all of us.
To recognize it on a more serious issue, it's recognizing the issue of bullying in school. So we all get to put on our brightest pink shirt and offer our support in that manner. That's it.
Fantastic. Thanks, Bruce. Go ahead, Don.
Good evening. Great to see everyone out. The only thing I have that's going on right now is I'm 2 days into a 4-day conference down in Toronto for the Good Roads. So learning a lot and asking a lot of questions and speaking with a lot of other groups of our size, different councillors and whatnot, and staff from different areas, and getting a lot of good information that I will be sharing with my counterparts when I get back.
Good evening, everybody. This Friday is the ribbon cutting for the grand reopening of Boston Pizza at 4 o'clock. Make some reservations, come out, see what they've done to refurbish the restaurant. They're a great partner for the municipality. And on Saturday at 4 o'clock is the screening of the documentary film Before the Plate, followed by a Q&A at Second Wedge, and tickets are available at Snapped. And the producer apparently will be there of this film. So come out. I think it's a valuable film to see about how your food comes about to be on your plate. And thank you.
Thanks, Pam. Willie?
Thanks, Dave. Recently back to town, and news travels fast, and thank goodness for the media. Those that are not aware, our Uxbridge Bruins swept the Port Perry Mojacks, waiting now on Lakefield and North Kawartha, so the winner of that series, to see who their next opponent is. If you haven't been out to see them, there's nothing really like playoff hockey at any level. And these guys are from what I hear, unfortunately I haven't been out to see them this year, in full disclosure, but I am a hockey guy, and I plan on getting out to a couple games, because a playoff atmosphere for hockey, when people are highly skilled at the game and you can see what they can do and how quick it is up at close and personal in our facilities, you're going to really appreciate it. So if you can get out there to see it, please do.
Fantastic. How about you, Gord?
I don't have anything to add, Mr. Mayor. I just congratulate everybody for coming tonight on not the best weather night of the year. I was driving up north today and it was a little bit hairy, so when I got back to Uxbridge, the sun was coming out, so that was a pleasant surprise. Thank you.
We're good to have you back, Gord. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, I was at a funeral today for Grace Walker, who was passed away at age 88, and she was sort of the matriarch of Zephyr. So they have quite a good turnout, about 150 people. Also, on Sunday, the mayor and I attended Stan Taylor's Space Club meeting. Lots of excited kids, and it's really a great thing for the area. And maybe one of the kids will be an astronaut one day. June Archibald had organized a book sale at Zephyr Hall and raised about $210, which will be donated then to the Zephyr Library. And the ribbon cutting for the new Durham Regional Police storefront was last week, and it's nice to have them back in town. It's just in that plaza in front of the Zehrs store. That's it.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much, Gary. And I just have a couple. The one, Saturday was the coldest night of the year, and it's a fundraiser for North House. And North House, they provide housing support for people that are struggling to find accommodations or are struggling to keep their accommodations. So it was a great event, amazing turnout, and it raised a large sum of money for North House. And then just to speak to the police, there was something missing. When we didn't have them in town, it made a difference. And to have them have an office in Uxbridge means that they'll be staying in town when they're doing reports. This will be more of a base for them. So anything that keeps our department in town longer is fantastic and great news. All right. What's first on the agenda, Madam Clerk?
Delegations.
Okay, excellent. We've got Blair Bengay, and he's going to talk about his family dwelling. Thanks, Blair. You can go to the podium right there. And there's a button there. That's it. And then
Red
just
light
hold that.
means
There you go.
I have power.
You have power. You're all set. Thanks, Blair.
I think I forwarded a submission in advance. I hope you've all had an opportunity to read it. We are in the process, I think it's approved now actually, for building a new home on our property. There is a small, modest 800 square foot home with no basement under it. Our hope and would be to turn that 800 square foot home into a accessory building after construction and remove the two bedrooms, turn them into storage, remove the kitchen and the electrical that supplies a stove so that we can use it as a place for my wife to get back to her quilting and crafting and et cetera. Since we moved from Ball Road, she had that space, and I've been in trouble for more than a year and a half, so we need to head back towards that. That's about what I can say other than what's on the submission. $50,000 is an extreme amount of money given the scenario that, from my perspective, we're doing nothing to the home other than removing a kitchen, cost being set at about $2,500 after it's, no longer a home. So therefore, a $50,000 bond is somewhat substantial, I think. So I was hoping you would consider a $10,000 bond, and we can go from there.
Okay, do you have anything to add?
Pardon me?
Do you have anything else to add, or you?
No, that's,
Okay.
I think it speaks for itself
Okay,
in
perfect.
my submission.
Okay. Any questions from council? Go ahead, Bruce.
Just one quick one. I was doing a little history. Sort of discussion amongst ourselves that it was normally there's a $50,000 bond when is the property getting transitioned for your wife to use for like hobbies and crafts, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Normally, I think if I understood this right, we normally take the bond because it's encouraging the homeowner to knock down the old building. Is that how it works?
Yeah. So typically, you can have two houses on a property, and so typically, we take the bond. They live in the one house while they're building the other one, and then the $50,000 is to ensure that they tear down the second house. In this case, he wants to keep the second house as an auxiliary building. And our issue is whether or not we can permit that from a planning perspective. So I think what might be best for us to do here is to have staff come back with a report recommending how we can actually do this for you. Just that way we don't want to make a decision here that can't actually
Oh, no,
be
don't
supported by
speak
staff.
until you have a full discussion, and I expected that anyway,
Okay.
on that context. So,
Perfect.
yeah, I leave it in your hands.
Well, perfect. Let's see if there's any other questions from,
Yeah.
go ahead, Gord.
Sorry.
Just a quick one, through you. Have you met with, Development Services downstairs? Have you had a chance to talk to them down there?
No, actually, I've been
Okay.
working through the building department. They guided me to this process
Yeah,
as
that's
it
what I meant,
stood.
yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
oh yeah.
So you talked to Brian and...
Brian and I have
Okay,
talked several
excellent.
times,
Good.
and I've been in business for 42 years.
Yeah, I'm
and
reading
dealt
that.
with them. Yeah,
It's quite
so-
a detailed letter, so that's,
Yeah.
that's very good.
Well, I hope I didn't
Yeah,
overfill you with
But I
info.
think the mayor is absolutely correct. We'll just refer it to staff and they'll come back with a proposal and
Yeah.
we'll move forward from there.
Okay.
Thank you.
No questions? Okay. So, can I get a motion to refer this back to staff to come back with a report for us? Okay, moved by Gord, seconded by Gary. All those in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. What's next, Madam Clerk? Okay. So, can someone move the minutes, please? Moved by Pam, seconded by Todd. Thank you. All those in favor of approving the minutes? That's carried. Okay, next we've got correspondence number 162. This is from the City of Toronto in regards to Bill 66. Okay, moved to receive by Gord, seconded by Willie. All those in favor? That's carried. Next one we've got is item 163. This is from Enbridge Gas via the Federal Carbon Pricing Program. What would we like to do with this, folks? Gord?
This is just an FYI for everybody's information, just to let you know they're merging the two companies. So once they got all their T's crossed and their I's dotted, they're gonna be raising their rates. Isn't that nice? So it's just an FYI, just to let us know. So I'll make a motion to receive, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thanks. And a seconded by Todd. All those in favor? That's carried. All right. Next we have, just a second, 164. This is from the Minister of Agriculture, and it's in regards to the Environmental Management Branch notification of non-agricultural source materials. This has been something that you've talked about in your ward before. Do you want to turn on your mic?
Yeah, I have two or three constituents who had wonderful wells, and then they started injecting the basically sewage. It's supposedly it's treated to a degree. They've been injecting it into the soil for a sod company, a sod farm. And about 3 or 4 weeks after they started doing that, the wells went completely bad. And I'm just trying to work on it and find out exactly what they can do about it. I'm having them take water samples every month to see if it dissipates over the winter, and then if it comes back again, then they'll have some proof, so we'll have some evidence that this is the problem.
Okay. And have you been working with the Ministry of Environment on that, Gary?
Not yet. I'm waiting for the we've done 2 water samples so far. Yeah.
Okay. So what would you like to do with this piece of correspondence?
With this correspondence?
Yeah.
Well, I was going to call the ministry and talk to them about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you want us to receive this then? Do you want to give it?
No, we can receive it. At
Okay.
this point, there's nothing more we can do,
Okay.
right? Yeah.
So moved by Gary, seconded by Gord. All those in favor? Carried? Oh, sure.
It might be helpful to have a member of OMAFRA come in and explain to council what this is all about. I mean, you and I have been through it because we've sat on council, but I think for the new people it might be helpful as to what NASM is and why they're doing it and that kind of thing.
Okay.
And MOE's sort of affiliated with it, but it actually is through OMAFRA, so if we can maybe get the clerks to contact them and maybe set up a delegation or something might be helpful. Thank you.
Do you want to make that a motion, Gord?
You can make that a motion or add it
Okay.
to the existing one.
Okay.
You okay with that?
So add it?
Is that
Okay.
right? Yep.
Perfect. Do we have to vote that again, or are we okay?
Yeah, all in favor.
Okay, all in favor? That's carried. All right. Next, we've got item 165. This is from the Uxbridge Soccer Club and North Durham United FC, the Men's Slope Pitch League, Uxbridge Adult Hockey, Uxbridge Men's Soccer, Uxbridge Women's Soccer, and it's a request to review our out-of-town user fee. Okay, Todd, you've met with these guys, I believe? Or I know I have, but... Okay. So, I think the letter speaks for itself, but I've spoken to these people if you want me to just talk about it. One of the big issues with a lot of our recreational programming right now is that the numbers are dropping across the board, from, especially with soccer. So they once had 1,200 users, now they're to 600. And to keep a vibrant rec program, you need more and more people. At one point when they were near capacity, we would charge extra for the people that weren't living in town because we subsidize the cost to use these fields. So it would be a way that the non-tax-paying players would pay back our taxpayers. Now, because we're desperate for people to play, it's actually hurting the overall sport. So their request is for us to drop that additional fee so that we can so that they can get more players and get a better return on investment for all of us. So that's the breakdown.
Just as I look at the numbers that he presented, I see what you're talking about. In 2012, the fee came in, registration has continuously dropped off with youth soccer, which may or may not be related to that fee. When you look at some of the others, it doesn't relate to 2012 at all. Like youth competitive, that was late coming. I was involved in that years ago, and so that's only just started, and it's grown until last year. I'm not sure if it's the right target. And like the women's soccer has dropped right off.
Yeah. 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 Can we get a motion then to bring a member of that wrote this letter to answer the questions for you?
I would think, I'm not disagreeing with the idea,
again, we've
but...
got people here, that's all.
Oh,
so if you have questions,
sure,
then we have
sure.
someone who can answer them.
Sure. So
Okay.
make a motion to have somebody
Yeah.
come in to
Yeah.
discuss the numbers would be great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so
There we go.
moved by Bruce,
Perfect.
seconded by Willie, all in favor? I think that's carried, I missed it, but, okay, good.
Hi there, I'm Grant Oliver, president of the Uxbridge Soccer Club. The fee we're talking about really only applies to the adults.
Okay.
So what you see in the graphs and the data you've got there is the men's league has gone from 89 players down to 60 over this period of time. The women's league have gone from 138 down to 62. And the out-of-town fee brought in 2012, which is the first year we actually took a breakdown of out-of-town versus residents versus non-residents. You basically lost a full team pretty quickly, and that's great if you're maxed out or not maxed out in any of the adult leagues, including baseball, is my understanding, and even the adult hockey leagues now. So what's happening now is if you don't, I guess our suggestion is that fee's not removed, we may not be able to, in the next few years, recover enough players to keep the existing residents able to play the sport in town. And I really don't want them leaving town.
No, it's helpful. I'm looking at that reference to rep soccer. So it's not, this isn't a youth issue at all. It's the men's and women's leagues. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Go ahead, Willie.
Thank you for coming in, Mr. Oliver. These are soccer numbers you've included in Uxbridge Adult Hockey as well. Is there numbers showing similar things there? Is there anything you're aware of with them that you can share?
I'm only aware anecdotally. I know, Blaine, do you know about adult hockey?
In 2012, they would have been running at between, I think it was 14 under 40 teams and 12 over 40 teams. This year, the under 40 is down to 12 teams.
Hey, Blaine, you have to go to the mic. And say it all again if you don't mind. And repeat it. Thanks.
In 2012, I believe it was 14 over 40 teams and 14 under 40 and 12 over 40 teams. I know this year the under 40's gone down to 10 teams. I'm not sure on the over 40 league, but I know that they've gone down as well. This year, men's hockey gave back 11 o'clock and 11:15 time to the arena this year, and I believe the women's league is obviously they've gone down as well. I believe, I don't know if so there you go, 10 women's teams last year, and they've gone down to 6 teams this year for the women's league as well for hockey. I know with the baseball league as well. Initially, I believe the baseball league lost roughly 4 teams in 2012. They were strictly teams that were out of the town, out of the municipality, that would come into Uxbridge to play. Enjoyed the competition. Unfortunately, when you have a whole team coming from out of town, $50 per player becomes extremely expensive, and so they decided that they would go and play elsewhere. The league has seen a steady decline as well, and I believe this year they're down to 8 teams, I believe. 8 teams this year in the baseball league as well.
Okay. Any further questions, Council? Gord?
Yeah, thanks for coming in, guys. Just a quick question. Were you able to track where they came from and where they went to instead of coming to here?
I know for the soccer, 2012, one of the things that the men's league did was due to the fee, the $50 out of town fee, we had a number of players that actually just said, forget it, we're not driving. Of that, I had 2 carloads, roughly 8 players coming from North Whitby. Right away they said, thanks but no thanks, we're already driving 30 to 40 minutes to come play in your league. Add that into $50 to play, it doesn't make sense, we'll play down in Whitby. One of the things that the men's league did was we actually just decided, in order to try and keep the league afloat, divide the fee amongst all of the players in the league. So instead of an out-of-town person paying the fee, the taxpayers of Uxbridge were now paying that fee to cover off, because personally I didn't want to drive to Whitby to play soccer. I wanted to play soccer in Uxbridge. So when I took over the league, we tried to implement that. We did get some of the players back, but most of the players are coming from North Whitby as well as in Mount Albert as well, were the 2 main draws for us.
Do you compare your rates with Whitby and the other men's leagues around?
I wouldn't say we compare rates. I would say we compare competition.
It's just, we want to be competitive.
For sure. Now the rate,
if there's a reason they're, that $50 or whatever, if that's making their decision for them, then obviously we have to be looking at that.
The rate that we charge, we don't make any money on it, right? We're just covering off our costs. Every year I try to make sure I get the least expensive jerseys I can. Every year I fight with the referees to make sure that they don't charge us $5 more per game. We try to make it as affordable as possible. The one thing I would say about our league is we have refs from all over, probably most of them from South Durham, and their favorite game of the week is Tuesday Night Men's League. They enjoy coming up and playing in our league because it's a good group of guys that have a lot of fun, and they all talk about how much they enjoy our league. At the end of the day, we just want to make it affordable, and we want to make sure it's a league that stays around. It's been around for, we're going on 20 years in Uxbridge, and we want it to be around for 20 more years for sure.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Oh, go ahead, Todd.
Okay, thanks guys for coming out and giving us that information. I would just, as an advocate of sport and healthy lifestyle, I'm not a soccer player, I'm not a hockey player, and I'm not a baseball player. Play volleyball. But I would definitely say that there is another whole side of this that I would look at and say, not only are we hopeful to bring those guys back, I would say, to build the playing here, but it also means dollars being spent here, because I would gather second wedge and places like that would be frequented after games and whatnot, or before, or whatever the case may be. So you're going to be building an economy as well. Hopefully not too much before.
Yeah. Is there any other questions for these guys? No? So we're going to have the Parks and Rec fees come back up on the agenda. When's that again, Catalina? Late spring. When do you guys start advertising your rates?
Last week.
Oh, you,
So it's currently on hold right now. The site is active. I haven't posted the link on the website yet.
Okay.
I do have people asking about it. Typically we start getting signups as now, because we need to order jerseys, we need to get rest books, we need to do all the steps involved with it as well. So
okay.
Soccer and baseball would be the two definite ones that would like your attention sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
As far as hockey, I know hockey's done the end of April, and then they start their signups that weekend as well. So hockey would want it, probably could be a little bit later.
Okay. Todd?
Would you be expecting that if we did, say, status quo, price is the same for out as in, that you would have those numbers returning this year? Or like we would be able to come back and say, yep, our teams now have gone from what they were last year, and we have 3 more teams in this 1 and 2 and this 1 and 4 and this one type thing based off of this?
I would be more than confident that you'd see numbers increase for sure. I have a group of, I have an email group called Out of Towners that
Okay.
that I email on a regular basis, and there's about 35 guys on that list.
Okay, so Dave,
Yeah.
and all, I would be ready to make a motion then that we do so for this year, and should the results equal, that we can look at continuing that going forward.
Okay. Okay, and Blaine, we talked about numbers when we met, it was 3 weeks ago, but
Yep.
what would this cost us again? From a soccer perspective, it was about $600, I think, right?
Yeah, I think the men's league was about $525 last year of out-of-town fees, and the ladies was maybe it's on there. I think you can see maybe $1,000 for the ladies league, maybe.
So small.
More than that for ladies.
Okay. Now, from a baseball perspective, what would this cost us from a baseball perspective? In lost revenue from 18 to 19?
We would be, I know for a fact that I can go from 8 teams to 11 teams this year if it is removed, just based on phone calls I've had over the last couple of weeks. I would say realistically, we're not gonna have it coming if they don't join. If they were to join, it's probably about $900 maybe.
Okay. Bruce, you're chair of finance. No, but, so guys, I think we need to increase sport in Uxbridge. It's a tourism draw. We're talking about a couple $1,000s here.
No, I
And
agree.
it makes sense.
Sorry, Meredith.
Yeah.
From a finance perspective, I would agree with you. I think we should try it for a year, as Councillor Snooks is saying, see what happens with the numbers. It's only a couple $1,000s, not that that's not important, but if that enables a number of men and women to continue to play the game they love, we gotta support that, so.
Yeah.
I'm on side.
Okay, good. So let's get a motion then. Moved by Todd, second by Pam. All in favor? That's carried. And that's to remove the out-of-town fee for men's and women's softball and soccer. And then we'll talk about hockey later.
They're not here, so.
Willie?
Just what would be great, guys, as we're talking about this now in the spirit of partnership, we're reaching out to help you. If you could look at your data and, kind of keep track of how things go for the year. Look at, and I would say even, survey your participants. Come back and see us in the fall, October, November, when the season's over, and let us know how it did, because we want to be partners with you. And data can, you've got numbers here, but understanding, knowing your consumer deeply, I think would help us understand what's going on there too, especially as we look at projects where fields, need to be filled to make sense. So, yeah.
We
Thank
do
you.
have access to the new sign up for Ontario Soccer. Will give us crazy data. It's new implementation across the board for Ontario Soccer as far as online sign up. So those reports will be no problem to run for you.
Amazing.
Seems like just the one thing we should add to it, maybe Catalina, is the prudent thing to do is do it for a year, sample it, come back in the fall, tell us how it went, and then we'll revisit whether we continue to do it.
Yep.
That make sense? So just, if we can just add that, Catalina?
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
then let's revote, because we changed that motion.
Fair
a little
enough,
bit.
yeah.
Okay, so, again, moved by Todd, seconded by Pam, all in favor. That's carried. Thanks,
Thank
Mike.
you.
Oh, and there we are. Okay. Next, we've got item 166. This is from Mason Homes in regards to Phase 2 Uxbridge Urban Area status. Now, we haven't spoken much about this, guys, but we've got a really big decision to make when it comes to Phase 2. We've got a lot of, we're going through our C3 zoning, looking at what our downtown's gonna look like. We're getting our downtown out of a floodplain. We've got a lot of work to do. I think we should wait a few months and take a look at what we do with Phase 2. Just spend some time speaking to Liz, speaking to planning staff, and decide where we're going here before we give away some capacity. Any comments on this? Willie?
Recently, I guess it was about 2.5, 3 weeks back, we had the region and their, Preston?
Yeah, John Preston.
John Preston. And I think he seemed to still be fairly leery of moving forward. I didn't sense a level of comfort, and that they were still kind of doing some research in that area, unless I was making... Aren't we still waiting for a bit from him? Or
yeah.
In addition, so,
and that's for anything above 15,000. So that's to get to the 16,457 or whatever that number is. But so for the additional units, that's still on hold until after they do that work. We can only make this decision once, so I think we need to make sure we make wise decisions there. Go ahead, Todd. Yeah. Yep. With you up there? Okay, no problem. So how about we get a motion to receive this, and then we can talk more about this when Liz is up here. Can I get a motion to receive then? Moved by Todd, seconded by Pam. All in favor? That's carried. Thanks, Liz. All right. So next we've got item number 167. This is from Amy Tribling and Bill Preschuk, and this is in regards to the fundraising dinner at Sanford Hall for Scott Central students. Okay. What would we like to do with this, folks? Pam?
We should support this. We've done this in the past. It's a great way to kind of give back to the kids and to show support by letting them use the hall.
Yep.
I think it's a really good thing, and to go to their spaghetti dinner.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so moved to support by Pam, seconded by Gary. And I'm going to miss this one, guys. I'm going to be out of town, so make sure we get some support from a council perspective. Okay, all those in favor? Okay, that's carried. All right. We've got item 168. This is from Grain Boys. Oh, yeah, Pam. Okay. Oh, they requested a donation. Okay. Oh, can I get a motion to refer that donation to the golf fund? This is for the Scott Central kids. That was part of their letter. And so we supported that. Okay, so let's just do that here. Willie, do you want to send that to your golf fund for a donation to those kids?
sorry, Mr. Mayor, I missed the part about the donation, so I'm just rereading again, but if it is there, let's forward to staff to evaluate with the golf fund.
Okay, so moved by Willie, seconded by... That's what we typically do, but why don't we just take a look at it if that's... We want to make sure we do what we've done in the past. Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Now we'll go to the Grain Boys, item 168, and these are his responses. So, what would we like to do with these guys? Gord?
Just a question, I don't know who can answer this. The way I read this, it's the answers they gave back in the summer. Now, I don't know whether these have been updated, Liz, or do you have any information to that effect, or... Because we had that 90-odd submissions come in a month or so ago. Now, were all of those questions answered in addition to this? I'm not clear on that.
So I'm not quite sure what this particular item is, but I can tell you that they have submitted, I believe it was 3 pieces of information, which are designed apparently to respond to all of the comments up to the point when they submitted them. And those have been posted on the township's website as being the response from from the applicant. So
you don't know if they're new
as far as I
responses
know,
or-
this may or may not be all of that, because they did come in. You know, the first thing that came in was their response from August, and then I believe they brought in their letter and their table a day or a couple of days later. But anyway, that is in effect what has happened. They have prepared a response. It has been posted on the website.
So again, it refers to attachment. I mean, unless I don't have it in my report, is there an additional attachment to this?
So it is on the agenda as page 32 and 33. So, and the letter that was attached is new. We received it on February 14th.
But they're not answers to questions, it's a table of the questions that were asked.
That's what we received
That's
from.
what you got back?
Mm-hmm.
See, that's where I'm confused. Is it the same answers they're giving again to the August submissions, or have they updated it, or is it?
And I believe there was a letter that had it was all in capital letters. Is that what's on it? Yeah, and that's their response, plus the August letter. And then what you see in the table is their analysis of what each person's concerns were. But the response is either is not, so they haven't responded to each person. They've grouped the responses and they said, okay, this is noise. These people all had a concern about noise. And they, in part, responded to that in August, and then in part in this letter. The letter and the submission also included all the technical reports which they had filed. Or it didn't. I won't say it included it, but it listed all of the reports and said, yes, some of the answers to the questions are in these reports. So they, in fact, requested all those reports be posted on the website too. And I'm not, were they posted? They were all. Yeah, they were all posted as well. So you have to look, in order to understand it, you have to look at everything.
Because if I was just to look at this not knowing, and I'm just going to use trucks as an example. I mean, there was a statement made in August. They questioned that statement apparently at the open house that they held, and then they were supposed to answer that question on the new submissions. And it doesn't say that here. It's very vague, if I can say that.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, my advice to them was that they not rely on the August letter, that they respond in total to everything as if the August letter didn't exist, that they put together a complete package that was understandable.
And
that is not what they chose to do, but that was my advice to them.
Because I think we were trying to get some clarity. To me, this is even more confusing than it was
Mr.
before.
Mayor, through you, I totally understand.
Okay. So maybe, Mr. Chair, we need to go back to them and get a updated report, can I call it that, on the latest information available. Because me, if I lived there, I would be more confused than I was prior to this. So if I'm confused, and I've been in here, as you know, a few years, they must be very confused. So where do we go from here?
Mr. Mayor, I'll
What's your
leave
advice?
that to council to decide.
What's your advice, Ms. Allison? Where should we go from here?
Frankly, my advice was, my decision was that I would try and do my own analysis as part of my planning report, and that hope that would bring everything together in a comprehensible way, and rather than trying to continue to get them to provide something which they frankly don't seem to be able to do.
Well, I think from a zoning perspective, you would probably know far more than they would. I'm talking about their operation. I mean, I'm not sure how familiar you are with it, but it could change based on where they are now to where they're planning to go. And
What I will be doing is reading their reports and reading all the submissions, and as I said, in my planning report, I will be analyzing that information, and where it's not possible for me to understand it, I will be getting input from your experts, or from the region, or from the province, and trying to put it all together in a way that is comprehensible. So because that's important for me. I have to make sure that I do understand it, and that I can then explain it to you, so that hopefully you understand it as well. So, and I think in this particular case, because there is so much technical stuff, the fact that the report will be issued a couple of weeks before you have to deal with it will be helpful, because it will give everybody a chance to digest this very complex information and to ask questions and to figure their way through it. And they'll have the time to do that, instead of getting your report on Friday and having to deal with it on Monday.
Right. Thank you, Ms.
Thanks. And the time certainly helps us. Now, just with an application like this, and typically there's regulations that they would have to follow when it came to noise, dust, things like that. As long as they're going to follow those regulations, is that enough typically for a report like yours, or do we need more data than that?
So, for instance, dealing with noise, one of the reasons that we asked for a noise report was that we wanted to be satisfied that based on all the information that they would be able to meet the regulations. So it isn't sufficient to just say, yeah, sure, we'll meet the regulations. No, you want some technical backup that says, yeah, not only can they meet the regulations, everything's in place that will allow them to do that as best we can tell.
Right. So we would then require, we will be at 22 dB or whatever that's what their noise report should say.
Yeah.
Whatever that number happens to be.
Whatever the number is.
Which is this far below the standard.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions from Liz on this? Oh, I have one from Catalina. What are the dates that we should receive your report?
I believe it's March 11th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's March 11th.
And it's April 8th, council.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Can I make a comment?
Of course.
I would suggest that any councillors that haven't been over to their operation in Aurora go. I went over there and spent some time there, and the noise factor was outside the building was virtually non-existent, just a hum. So when I took a tour through inside the building, the machinery was very loud, but you couldn't hear it outside. And they said that the new machinery will be much quieter, that machinery that was in there presently was from the 1950s. There was no dust inside or outside, and not a truck came or went while I was there.
And Gary, it's interesting you brought it up now. I had a Lake Simcoe Conservation meeting that ended earlier than I expected. I went over to Aurora, totally unannounced, and toured the facility. And I found the same things that you talked about. Good facility, quite clean, quite quiet outside. And then one of my old customers from when I was working in electronics has the building right next door. And they actually share a wall. So I talked to them for quite a while, and they spoke very highly of the operation. So I'm pretty comfortable with the business, but the reporting has been tough to deal with. So, so what are we going to do with this correspondence? Probably just a motion to receive would be best.
Yeah, I'll provide the motion to receive. I guess further to Councillor Hyatt's comments and just asking for clarification, are we going to continue to ask for clarity with regards to this document? Because if it sounds like we need a little bit more comfort make sure, not only for council, but that the residents' questions were answered, and how would we go about doing that?
So, why don't you make a motion to request additional information from the applicant?
Yeah, I think that that's what I'll do is, motion to receive, as well as, further to that, address some of the questions that we still have, and we can work with staff on that. For one, to Councillor Hyatt's point, I don't see a number of trucks on here. And that was one of the clear questions that we had, and it says that they addressed it by separate cover, or by attachment, but I don't see a number anywhere. So, if we could do that.
Okay, so, that would be moved by Willie. Would you want to second that? Okay, and all those in favor of that motion? Okay, that's carried. You've got everything you need on that? Okay. And we've done the motion to receive, correct? Yeah.
So now 170 Rutledge Jewelers.
Okay, great. Okay, next is, item 170. This is from Rutledge Jewelers. And this is to request, to install a fountain as part of their, display this year. Oh, and, yeah. If we still have quorum, we're good. Thanks. Guys, what would we like to do with this Rutledge one? Willie, that's your ward.
Motion to receive, I believe we have to get approval through the region because it's a regional road, so I would, refer to staff to determine. Ben might be able to answer it.
Okay, good. So, moved by Willie, seconded by Gord. All those in favor? Oh, Rutledge. Yeah.
And the region as well.
And, well, to refer to staff and region, yeah. Okay, and all those in favor, I think we did that? That's carried. Okay, next, is this 169?
Yeah, we did that.
Do we do that with that? Okay, I didn't. Okay, so we've got, the resolution now, right? Okay, I'll speak to this first. Because we're rotating the deputy mayor position, and we can't, but we need a backup for me. If I'm unable to assist in an emergency, we need a backup for me. And that can't transition the same way, because you need to go through training and it has to be part of a bylaw. I looked to someone who lived close to the fire station, would be available if I wasn't, so to make sure that neither of us were outside the country at the same time. And someone who could handle this kind of responsibility. And Willie was top on the list for that. I first thought of Todd, but because he's working about half the time, it made it more complex. But we did discuss that. So that's why Willie has been suggested for this position. Is there any questions on that?
Yeah, it's getting a little confusing here. We've got a rotating deputy mayor.
Yep.
And now we've got another one.
Okay, so in the case of an emergency,
Yeah.
there has to be a backup for the mayor in the case of an emergency. You can't rotate that because it's enacted by a bylaw, and it requires additional training. So this is for the full year, we have someone as backup, and then when there's a full-time deputy mayor appointed, then that person would take over that responsibility.
Okay.
So December of 2019, someone else will be appointed to that. To the emergency, to be the full backup in the case of an emergency.
So this resolution is actually, sorry, Councillor Rona, so this is to have Councillor Pop until December of 19
For the emergency backup.
for the emergency backup.
Yeah,
And then, by that time, you've made your decision on the deputy mayor.
Yeah.
And that becomes one and the same.
exactly.
I found the old system a lot easier when you had one deputy mayor and without the rotation business. And I thought the right person would be the regional councillor. Things seemed a lot easier in those days when we just had one deputy mayor. So that's, I think we should go back to that system.
Okay. Thanks for your suggestions. Okay.
I'll just, to build on that thought, I'm thinking the same way, that it seems to me it's one of those positions you'd want, I'll say, for lack of a better term, the steady hand, right? So we're in a bad situation, there's a flood, there's a fire, like a massive fire, there's something serious happening, and due to bad luck, you're not in town at the time that it happens. It seems to me, and it's no disrespect to Councillor Pop whatsoever, I think he's doing a great job, I'm just thinking it's more of a person that's been in the seat for a long time and understands the lay of the land. And I'm with Councillor Rona that, to me, like, what was the rationale? You said you talked about Todd, you talked about Willie. What about Councillor Hyatt?
We didn't, Gord and I didn't discuss this one. Typically, it's the people that are close to the office that are around and available. So when you're looking,
all three of us that are in the urban area are all within a stone's throw of the fire station.
Correct.
Like I can see it. If I stand on my roof, I'm looking at it. So, and I'm not looking for the position. I don't think it should be me. I think it's the experienced guy. Gord probably, he runs downhill, Willie runs uphill to get to the station. So it's, I don't think it's a position like where we physically live, and I'm not sure from an experience perspective. I just think that Gord's got that background. And again, no disrespect to Councillor Pop whatsoever. To me, it's a logical way to go. And as for availability, I'm not trying to put words in Councillor Hyatt's mouth, but he's now in a full-time position as a regional councillor. I don't know how much he does on his previous business, but I would think he's spending much more time in Uxbridge than he ever has in the past.
Gord, do you want to speak to it?
Well, what do you want me to say? I mean, was I consulted? No, I wasn't, and you mentioned that. Again, no disrespect to Councillor Pop. I think he's a great councillor. Again, to speak to what you said, experience. I mean, I was the vice chair for emergency services for 12 years, whether that has any bearing on this or not, but I would be willing to take the position on if that's what you're asking me. I certainly don't want to be blowing my own horn, if you will. I mean, I'm not running for this position. If council feels it's in their best interest to have me, I'd be willing to take that position on. So.
Okay. And it's been tough. As we're going through this transition, we obviously want to give everyone opportunities to do a number of different things. We need to ensure that we're working together whenever possible, and that we're backing each other up.
Could I muddy the waters further?
Go ahead.
And move that we go back to the way things were initially without the rotating.
You can't.
Why?
Well, we already have a bylaw in place already.
Can we not remove the bylaw and have a new bylaw?
It was passed unanimously for it to be that way, so if you're going to rescind a motion, it would have to be somebody that voted against it, the original motion. So
Pardon me?
It would have to be somebody that voted against the original motion, and it was passed unanimously to have a rotating deputy mayor for the first year.
Well, it's a little strange that you can't change your mind.
Just let's think about timing here. I'm out of the country, but not for a month. Right? No, I know, but we're not going to do that now. Okay.
We can table the resolution to the next meeting, or to the next council meeting. The next meeting is a committee meeting. We can move it to the next council meeting.
Okay. Does someone want to table this?
Let's say, or the only other alternatives before we do that is, do we amend the resolution to discuss whether it be Councillor Pop or Councillor Hyatt? So add Councillor Hyatt to the resolution. It's an alternative.
And my struggle with this is when I call most of you you always pick up the phone, right? And Gord, you're a great guy, but when I call you, it goes to voicemail almost every time. So, like, when there's an emergency, I always want someone who can back me up at that second. It's my concern.
Purpose of this is to handle it if you're not in town. That's how I read this, and maybe I'm misreading something. So if you're away or you're incapacitated or God forbid you were in an accident or something, you needed someone to take over. That's, I think, the role of this.
Yeah.
It's not because you can't go to a meeting, it's because you're not physically available to attend, so being that what it is, then I'll leave it at that.
Okay. So do you want to table this and come up with another plan? Or do you want to change the resolution?
Wait to see if anybody else that hasn't spoke is going to choose to speak, rather than the three of us just doing all the talking.
I would suggest that we table it at this point and maybe discuss further where we're at in regards to...
Okay. A second to table? Seconded by Pam. All in favor? That's carried. All right. Next is Business Report DS-0319. This is Phase 2 Uxbridge.
So, I'll just give you the Coles Notes version. I'm not sure that there's a Coles Notes anymore, but some of us remember Coles Notes. In the late 1990s, there was an official plan review of the Uxbridge Urban Area Secondary Plan, and at that time, it was concluded that there was not sufficient sewage capacity to go beyond what is now known as the borders of Phase 1, which you can see on the overhead there. So Phase 1 basically is everything except for the three areas which are shaded in shades of purple. However, it was concluded that at some time in the future, there might be some potential sewage capacity to allow growth outside of Phase 1. And so the concept of Phase 2 was developed. And it really says this is, if growth is going to happen, these are the areas where it should go. These are the potential natural extensions of the urban area. However, huge requirements were put in place before anything could occur in those areas. And in particular, both the regional official plan and the township official plan need to be amended before any growth can occur there. The good news is that that was done before the growth plan, and so it has been grandfathered, if you like, and you don't need to do a municipal comprehensive review, or really the region doesn't have to do a municipal comprehensive review to let growth occur there. So that's one barrier that you don't have to face, but you do have to go through a very rigorous review process. And because this is to do with sewage capacity, so your growth is not something where you do your projections and you say, okay, you know, X people are going to come to Uxbridge and where should we put them? No, it's how much capacity does the sewage plant have, which changes over time, but slowly. Anyway, so that was back in the 1990s and this was all set up. And since then, we've monitored and we've monitored and we've monitored. and the region has made improvements to the plant, and they've made improvements to the plant. The one thing that they can't do is enlarge the Uxbridge Brook, but they can and have done their very best for the township in terms of trying to find improvements to the plant. And still, until very recently, they took the position that there was insufficient capacity to allow growth beyond the urban boundary. We're now at a situation with the latest upgrades that they thought that there might be a chance that you could start to think about phase 2. Not automatically go there, just start to think about it. So we worked together, the township and the region, and there was a study done by Hempson, who were really finding it hard to grapple with the fact that based on sewage capacity, but anyway, they did the study. In my view, it was extremely conservative. So we made allocations for the downtown for 600 people. We looked at any potential that we could think of for growth in phase 1. Anybody who'd come in and sort of said, oh, well, I'm thinking about maybe could we do this? And we said, okay, all right, well, you know, come back and see us at some time. But, you know, we said, all right, well, somebody came in and they said they could put some townhouses there. So we factored that in. And so the conclusion was that even if you took that into account, and even using the region's people per unit, which are extremely conservative, and in fact, I had to fight with Hempson to use those numbers, because Hempson said, like, look, these aren't real numbers. This isn't the number of people you typically get in a unit anymore. But my point to them was, yeah, but that's what the region is basing their assumptions on. So there's no point in using something else, because we'll then come up with a number that says, oh yeah, there's all this potential here, and the region will say, well, that's fine, but we're not approving that because that's not the PPUs that we use, the people per unit that we use. So anyway, we went through all that process, which is detailed in this report, in the Hempson report, which is attached. And in the end, it appears that we can open the door a crack. And we can not, as of today, say, fine, like, development can occur in phase 2. No, what we're saying to you is the township should sit down with the region and figure out revisions to both official plans and the kinds of conditions that you want to place on development in phase 2, so that we can then come back to you and say, all right, here is the way, if it's going to unfold, this is the way it should unfold. These are the conditions that have to be met. This is how it should occur, because based on the information we have, it's logical to go with the Mason Homes site as a first phase of the second phase. And this is what we want you to think about. So at that point, you will have to say, all right, are these sufficient conditions? Are these something that we are comfortable with? We need to add this or that or the other, whatever it is. And you'll have to make a decision at that point. But at this point, all I'm asking for is the direction to start talking to the region to figure out, all right, if we're going to do this, how are we going to do it, and under what conditions? Bearing in mind that this is a planning process. Regardless of what you do, you still have to approve the allocation when they come in with their actual applications. And you can still say, you know, despite everything else, because we have some additional information, so let's say hypothetically, an application comes in the downtown for, I don't know, 1,000 people. And that throws all the numbers off. And you can say, you know, no, we want to keep the allocation for that, and we're not prepared to go ahead. So it's the first step on a road, but there still will be lots of moments where you can pause and say, is this really the right thing for Uxbridge? That was the Coles Notes version.
Thank you for the Coles Notes version. Any questions from council? Gord?
I'm just going to sort of repeat what I said a couple of weeks ago, and I'm agreeing with the mayor on this. I don't know if you're surprised on that one. But, is it premature, I guess, is the question. And you said you were going to open the door a crack. I mean, based on the numbers here in the Hempson report, and by the way, I think they have a typo on one of their comments here. It says that, in particular, it is important for the township to ensure that development within the existing community, Phase 1, is progressing, and that there is sufficient sewage capacity for specific development proposed before any development in Phase 2 is considered. So it should say Phase 1, right? Anyway, I know you didn't write that report, so I'm not blaming you. And I guess they're numbers, and I sort of, when they say 291, they mean 291. There's no gray area with engineers. They're usually, the margin of error is so small that it's ridiculous. So having said that, to open the door for 291 units, even if it is Mason that's first in line, it's not going to satisfy anywhere near there. I think there was, what, 300 or 400 homes they wanted to put in, or I forget the actual number now.
Yeah.
Anybody want to
So it's 291 people?
Units.
That's not units. It's people.
Oh, it's people.
It's
okay,
people.
well that even changes
so
the dynamic even
you
more.
know,
Right?
depending on the type of unit and depending on the people per unit that you
Right.
use, it's something like 80, you know, 85 units, something like that. So you're right, it doesn't seem like a significant amount, but we know that the second set of improvements to the sewage plant are quickly to follow.
Right.
In which case there will be sufficient for the rest of their development.
But it also makes...
And I know that the current government is working and wrote a letter to the mayor to say how they're working to move things along in terms of improving housing. Nevertheless, it's a slow process. So you have to do your both your regional official plan and your township official plan. They have to file their application for plan of subdivision, and then they have to get draft plan approval and rezoning, and then they have to get their registration. So all of that, frankly, could take several years, by which point I would think, based on what the region is saying, that you'll be into your second set of improvements.
But again, I wonder, and it's made assumptions based on applications pending possible ones that could happen. I mean, there could be another, as you say, group of townhouses that just pop up out of nowhere that we hadn't contemplated. And if we've opened the door to the 291 people, where are we? You know what I mean? So that's, I think, Mayor Barton, if
that's
I'm
why you
paraphrasing what you're saying. I think that's
but
where my
that's
head's at,
why
right?
you will be and the region will be continuously monitoring.
Sure. I just don't want to create this door creek, with the anticipation that the developers can move in and then find out it's slammed shut in their face. That's where I'm going with it. Do you understand what I mean?
I think that two of the owners are sitting in the audience, and I think that they would be the first to tell you that they know that this is not, throwing the door open and letting things rip.
Go ahead, Doug.
Just for clarification, so I make sure my own brain is on the wavelength there that we're on. So what you're suggesting as far as cracking the door open is us, or you, working with the region on the two plans, which would need to be in place in order for them to put in anything. That, to me, would make sense, to have that already in the process, working towards what could happen in the future. And as you said, two, I thought all three were here, but maybe it's just the two, are present, and they've been doing this for decades. They know the business from that standpoint. I think it would be a detriment to us if we didn't start our process now and only started that once we knew we had numbers finalized, because then you're delaying it even further, which is, again, a tax base that we need eventually. We know it's going to come eventually, so let's get our ducks in a row. That would be my, if I'm on the right wavelength, and the thought process of what we were actually talking about.
Well, and I think, frankly, you want to be in charge of this process. You don't want the landowners to take charge of the process, which is why we started this process, because there were pressures, and there's already been one appeal to what was then the Ontario Municipal Board on this matter, which was withdrawn, but there are ways for the landowners to take charge of this process. And frankly, I think it's much better if the township and the region are in charge of this process.
Okay. Any other questions here? Gord?
Technical one. If we initiate a ROPA, an official plan amendment, do we have to not provide them with something to make the amendment on? If we're just saying 291 people, is that enough to get the ball rolling? Is that what you're suggesting? I agree conceptually with what you're saying, but logistically, does it make sense, I guess, Even if the region finds there's 500, that may satisfy 1 out of 3, or maybe not.
No. And the part's quite clear. We are not going to satisfy all three owners. We cannot, and that is even after the second set of improvements. But that's why we need to set up a process to make that clear, and also to make it clear when and how we could at least start to satisfy the rest of them. But no, we are not going to satisfy all three, unless there's some technological miracle at the region.
No, and just my approach to this is sitting down and taking a really good look at where growth can take place in our community, where it should take place, and timelines for that growth. There's new technologies now that we, the region, are opening the door a crack to look at in terms of private systems like what we have at Windance. I don't want to delay this very long, but I'm not completely comfortable with opening the door for just one of our three landowners today.
But I think that we're saying the same thing.
Okay.
So what my recommendation is that we sit down with the region and we work out how this should proceed.
Okay.
And we would then come back to you.
Okay.
So you're saying yeah, we need to sit down and
Yeah.
think about this some more. I'm saying, yeah, we need to sit down and think about it more specifically
Right.
about how this should proceed.
Yeah.
So we're saying the same thing.
We are. The only difference is I'm looking at your report, and under item 2.1, it talks specifically about 3709 Center Street. So if we eliminated that part of it, then I could support everything else. Your mic's off.
And I think we have enough information to know that is not only from a I pushed the wrong button at the wrong time. So I think we have enough information.
Yeah.
But again, if we go back and work with the region and through that process, bearing in mind your comments,
Mm-hmm.
if they say, well, 2-1, then fine, we'll come back with that recommendation.
Okay, again, I just want to make sure that we're looking at this big picture and that we don't, if there's a way to include everyone with a private system moving forward, we can find a way to do that.
Well, and certainly one of the things, and I think it's referred to here, is to look at how you would investigate addressing or investigating the potential for use of private systems.
Yep.
And the discussions I've had,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be a pretty complex process.
Yep.
And one of the things I want to do is talk to the region about, okay, what is this? It's an environmental assessment. How do I cover that off in both of our official plan amendments? How do I address that kind of process, and how does it work with the planning process? Because I've spent my entire career avoiding the environmental assessment process.
I understand. So then with your recommendation, could we move forward with your recommendation minus the one address?
I would prefer not to, but if that's how you want him to go, then I'm in your hands.
So what's the positive to have that address it? The one address, just to...
It gives us some direction in terms of how we should look at things. So,
okay.
Yeah. Based on everything we have to date. But as I said, if somehow or other, out of the process, there's some different conclusion, believe me, I think the region will tell me.
Okay. Gord, do you want to comment on that? Do you have a preference on how this goes?
If we can initiate the process, I'm all in favor of that, and I'm kind of where your head is at, I think. If we're singling out 1 out of 3, I think we open ourselves to censure from the other 2, obviously. That's aside from that, I don't think that's a reason to stop. But I would like to see something happen, but I think we got to do it right, and I think that's where you're going, I think.
Yeah.
Not that I'm withholding anything from anyone, I just think if we had 1,000 units or whatever, fine, open that door, let's get the ball going and everybody's smiling, but to do it over 200 and the region could turn around next week and say, oh, we made a mistake, it's only, 50 or something. I mean, not that they would, but I'm just saying we need more than 290 is where I'm going to really make it worth our while to open that door. And that's just my opinion. I'm not saying I'm an expert. By far you are, but I'm I'm looking at it on the other side. Right?
As I said, it's only that number, but for a relatively short time.
Sure. And I understand.
Like you, if that's all it was,
Mm-hmm.
and that was it, then I don't think we'd be here. The fact is that there is a process in place, and we know what the numbers that will produce, which is much more significant.
Okay. Gord, are you prepared to make a motion here?
Did you want to remove that 2.1? Is that what you suggested?
I would prefer to remove 2.1, but
reword that somehow? Do you want to propose a rewording of that? if we're gonna remove it or merge it with 2.2 to make it more palatable. But I think I'm not gonna paraphrase what the mayor said, but I think he's saying we're confining it to that one address. If there's a way to make it a general investigation, or maybe you've got some wording there.
If you just say to permit development to proceed on the land, on lands in phase two.
Yeah.
Such development being phased in accordance with the availability of sewage capacity in the plant, and to establish a process for the evaluation of the remaining lands to determine appropriate phasing in accordance with the availability of capacity, as well as providing for direction, blah, blah, blah.
Is that where you're headed?
That's where I'm going.
I'll make that.
Okay.
If you could make that amendment. Yeah.
Did you get on that, Dan? Okay. You not yet. Thanks, Fabio. You can text something this up. You can text me if you want. Just because Liz is here, it gets complex. Thanks. So we have the wording on that? Okay. Gord, you're supporting that motion? Okay. So moved by Gord. Would someone like to second that? Todd's his word. So seconded by Todd. All those in favor of that recommendation? Okay. So it's everything in the main recommendation, but 2.1 is read.
Mr. Chair, I can do it for you. 2.1. To permit development to proceed on lands in Phase 2 of the Uxbridge urban area, such development being phased in accordance with the availability of sewage capacity in the Uxbridge Brook WPCP. That's 2.1. 2.2 remains the same.
Any questions on the motion? Okay. All those in favor? Okay, that's carried unanimous. Thanks a lot, Liz. Fabio, you could have a question when we're done. Yeah, that makes sense, right?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. I'll find the right spot for you to jump in, and then you can ask a question. I don't think we have much left here. Okay, where are we now here, Catalina?
Nope, my report.
Oh, yeah, Catalina's report. Okay. All right, so this is report CL 1519 of Catalina, and this is in regards to the changes with Bill 68. Great report. Any questions for Catalina as she's sitting here? Okay. All right, would anyone like to move the recommendations of Catalina's report then? That's moved by Bruce, seconded by Pam. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, and are we now on bylaws? Okay. And who's got the bylaws? Okay. Who's first? Oh, yeah, sure.
Just on 2019-019 on the roadside memorials, is there a way we can encourage people to do a bench tree planting as a first option? It's just you don't want these things willy-nilly all over the place. I mean, I understand why they're there, but to me, a legacy of a tree and a bench or whatever could be far more long-lasting than having a roadside memorial.
Yeah, we discussed that at the previous meeting, that we'd encourage
but we never
that.
really made it a priority. We just said it's there. So.
So we can link to the policy on there's a tree and bench dedication webpage on the website.
Right.
And then it's also in the policy that it says, like, the permanent option is always to do a tree or a bench. I don't know if you want us to do, like, a press release about the tree and
I think I read the media report on this,
yeah.
and they mentioned the tree and the bench program as part of that.
It's there, yeah, but...
Moya mentioned that as part of her article.
Or streamline them like you
Yeah.
do a 13-month, and then you move into the other option. Rather than doing it in perpetuity, to me, it would make more sense. Can we
Do you
add
want to
that
make an
somehow?
amendment?
Well, maybe you can add it to your policy. I don't think we need to have it today, but it's just a suggestion. To me, it makes far more sense to have that as a long-lasting memento than having a roadside thing, so that's just my
Sure.
opinion.
Okay.
Does anybody else think that's a good idea? Yeah?
Well, you know, I think having a bench in the middle of nowhere doesn't make any sense.
No, they're usually in parks or...
Yeah. But that's not, but the accident actually occurred though, right, in most cases.
I think part of it too is that, in my perception, I don't necessarily believe that people, when they have a tragic incident like this happen, think of the town where the accident took place when they're posting their memorials. So sometimes they may come up and then it's kind of figuring out, I mean, I'm sure we are aware of who the people are, or can be aware of it. It just, I like Councillor Hyatt's perspective from the point of having the bench available sooner to let people know so that it's more of a forethought than an afterthought upon it happening. Because, I mean, people get, as we've seen already, it's pretty polarizing when somebody loses someone. If we had this more top of mind with it, and maybe to your point, Catalina, a release on it or something like that might make sense. I agree. I think it might make sense to put it a little higher up as a permanent memorial to the person. And I'd almost say both, like they can have it up for a year and then a bench as well at the same time, something like that.
So the only staff members dealing with this will be myself and Ben, and we both know that the first item that we will say that is permanent and is forever is a bench or a tree. So we will always try to encourage the person to do that as a way of commemorating their loved one instead of a memorial, but also say that a memorial is allowed for up to 13 months. But I think, yeah, like a press release, you can definitely do that, just to let people know. But I agree with you 100%.
Sure.
Sure.
Make that motion then, Mr.
Okay, sure. And seconded by Willie. All in favor? Carried. And I spoke to, how this got started, I spoke to that family via email today, and they're really happy that we moved forward with that policy. And remind me, they want a copy of it too, so. All right. So bylaws, do you want to move forward with those? Any more questions on bylaws? Okay. Go ahead, Tom.
Okay. Okay, bylaws requiring third readings, February 25th, 2019. First reading and second reading moved by myself, Todd Snooks, seconded by Bruce Garrett, that leave be granted to introduce bylaw numbers 2019-019 through to 2019-027, and the same be read a first and second time. Third reading moved by Todd Snooks, myself, seconded by Bruce Garrett, that bylaw number 2019-019 through 2019-027 be now read a third time, finally passed, and the mayor and clerk duty sign and seal same.
Confirming bylaw, first reading and second. Want to do the other bylaw yet? Before the bylaw? Oh.
So we have the membership selection to two Durham advisory committees. One is the environmental and the other is the agricultural committee. And Laura did send an email about this to all of you because it was tabled from the January 7th committee meeting. So yeah, we should make a decision on who we'd like to appoint for those two committees. Whether you'd like to go with it's page 70, I believe, on the agenda, whether you'd like to go with the two people that applied or whether you have other suggestions.
So, Yeah, I'm comfortable with both these. I don't know why this was tabled in the past, but. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Okay. Do we want to move forward with this? Okay. So moved by Pam, seconded by Bruce, that these two members, Bruce Foxton. Oh, yeah, you're right, thanks. Can I get a motion to lift this from the table? We got, Gord and Willie, all in favor? Here we go. Now, motion moved by Pam, seconded by Bruce. What's that? Okay. That, that Bruce Foxton for the environmental and Brian Smith for the agricultural committee. Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And then under other business, we've got, oh, we have nothing because we're not going in camera. We don't need that anymore. Okay. All right, so we're ready for confirming bylaw? Oh, should we do questions before confirming? Okay, questions from the press. Roger.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Rona, on the biosolids being spread. Councillor Rona said local wells have been impacted. When did spreading these biosolids begin? Because it wasn't approved until February the 15th.
Mike. Again, Mike. There you go.
Yeah, it happened several years ago.
Oh, several years ago.
Yeah.
But this is a new application, is it?
It's not really an application. I'm just trying to find a way to resolve their well problem.
Yeah. Do we have any idea what volume of biosolids, as they call them, what volume is being spread on these fields?
There's a sod farm right next door, so I couldn't tell you, maybe 50, 60 acres, 80, 100, I don't know.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Garrett. On the sports fees for out-of-towners, and council just agreed, well, you're going to waive them for this year. Does that mean the recreation department's going to have to reconsider its figures for the budget?
The point being is that the amount is not significant enough to make a material difference to their budget. So if necessary, I guess the answer then would be yes, to find that additional, what was it, $2,000?
Although, from what we've heard from the people that wrote the letter, they expect our revenues will actually increase because they'll get more people signing up for these sports. So it'll probably be, when we look at it, it should increase our revenue, not decrease.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And one final question. Ms. Howson said she expects her final Grain Boys report on March the 1st.
March 11th.
Oh, March 11th, I'm sorry. Okay, March 11th. Okay. Does the same rule apply here then, that will be released to the public 2 weeks before council deals with it?
We're going to be voting on this April the 8th. That's correct, right? Yeah.
Oh, you've already made that decision,
Yeah.
April the 8th?
April the 8th.
But the question remains, Mr. Mayor, will that report be made public
Yeah.
all that time?
Yeah, as soon as we have it available to us, we'll make it public.
Thank you.
No problem, sir. Okay, any other questions? Okay, any questions from the audience? Fabio, you have to go to a mic. Thanks. No problem.
As you know, I'm a landowner in phase 2, just south of Reach Road there by the golf course. I was very glad to see that the town did go ahead with their study and they hired Henson to do their report. they're being a little bit conservative, but it does open the door for the future. You know, the town has to grow. I'm not only talking from a developer builder standpoint. I got some commercial property downtown. I just renovated lately the old IGA location. I put 4 new stores in there. My dad built a bowling alley in 1969, 1970. And also I own the plaza here just before the IGA store. So it's very important that we do bring people to town, because the last thing we want is the town to stop, right? And I want to see the downtown to flourish, not only as a landlord, also as a town to grow, right? So I'm very happy that the study did come forward, and we are going to approach phase 2. And I understand that it is a new council, so last summer all 3 developers were called and they said, bring a plan forward with your planner, come to the table, show me your ideas. Basically, they want to know our perspective, where we're going, what our intention was, what we're all about. So we all did that, but now looking at council, it's all new faces. So if you would like, all 3 developers can come again to the table and show you what we're all about, what our intentions are, so basically you know what direction phase 2 should go at. That's what I think. Because basically you just got a recommendation from Liz, but basically I look around, it's all new faces. They just told you, here guys, what do you think? And you guys saying, what are you guys talking about? That's the problem. So from my perspective, all 3 developers should come back to the table, give you a presentation, and you guys should go back and decide where we're going with it, but phase 2 should go ahead. As the region said, 1,764 people are coming out, basically another 500-600 lots in 3 years from now. The ball has to start rolling. So I think that all 3 developers should come back to the table, tell you our story, what we're all about, what we're going to do, and you guys can decide what direction. But we should get going with phase 2.
Yeah, and that's what we voted on today.
Thank you.
And we wanted to ensure that we look at this big picture, long term,
For sure.
and consider every option. And that's why we pulled an address.
So
That's all.
can the 3 developers come back to the table and show you our proposals? Or?
I would be very happy for you to come and do a deputation to council.
So maybe all 3 of us can come. At least it opens your eyes, what we're all about, what we're going to do.
Yeah, and I think Todd has a question.
Through you, Mayor.
Thanks.
Although he doesn't know what I'm going to say.
No, I'm scared.
I think that's an excellent idea on twofold, and I would say to mirror your comment about this is a new face overall.
For sure.
So that would be an excellent idea, and I would simply say, from my perspective, all 3 developers should be prepared for creating something that looks a little bit different than what we've seen in the past.
For sure. I agree.
Any other questions from the
So
audience?
basically, you want us to set up a date and come to council again, all 3 of us?
Yeah, so just to, so I think we'll leave it up to each developer to do their own.
Okay.
But if you want to set up a deputation to come in,
Yeah.
we'd be very happy to have you.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, and Pam has a question.
Sure.
Not remembering exactly some of the facts from last summer, was there any provisions for low-cost housing?
I didn't see the other plans that the other builders did. Everybody had their own intention and their own vision.
So
that,
you're here, I'm asking you now.
Yeah, I did. What I did is I reached out, there's a Richview Manor on Reach.
Yes.
They're a Class C facility.
Yes.
So there gotta be a Class A facility in about 5 years from now. That was mandated by the province. So I reached out to them, I said, listen, I'm willing to sell you and you can build a new building going eastward on Reach Road. And on the corner, I'll build a rental accommodation, 40, 50 unit. And behind that, I start my subdivision. So it's a rental accommodation on one corner, and Reachview, they thought it was a good idea because they got to do something with their old place. And it's not far away. We're not losing the old people.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my thinking.
Okay. Thank you.
Bruce?
I'd like to hear a little bit more about that discussion. Maybe we can do it offline regarding, because I'm very involved in the bringing of a long-term care facility to town.
Fair enough.
If you're talking directly to people at Reachview, you're probably not talking to the right people. So we should have a conversation.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thanks, Fabio.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the audience?
I just want to make a comment. I like everybody that we have for this next term, so I don't want anybody to take offense to what I'm about to say. But whoever sits in the mayor's chair, especially when it's their first year, as along with the councilors in their first year, you have to bend. Like, they're not always going to make the right decisions, perhaps. We're not always going to be happy. But in defense of our mayor, I agree in the sense that he should have spoken to each one of you before he made his final decision about who's going to replace in an emergency situation. When it comes to who is more experienced, most of the time I saw look towards that aspect. But as I was sitting there, when they were talking about our regional councilor, I'm thinking the people voted him as a regional councilor, so when he goes down to their meetings each month, their meetings are like 6 to 12 hours long. Thankfully, as a councilor, you're not sitting here for 6 to 12 hours long each month. And I somewhat, our mayor commented about thinking about the different people when he looks at them, and his response. I respected the position that he held, that he chose the right person. And I'm looking at location is important too, to the fire department building. I think that my concern is you want somebody when you call that they are going to pick up and respond quickly. Over the 3 months? December, January, February. Over the 3 months, there are some counselors that I have tried to reach, and I'm just a resident. I'm not the mayor, but as a resident, there are some counselors out there that are quicker than others. And to make that decision, unfortunately, I think if the mayor had asked everybody behind the scenes, he wouldn't have been put in that awkward position when the regional councilor said, well, nobody's asked me yet. But with his reason, I respected the mayor's reason about when he has called on to the, certain people and stuff. So in this particular situation, I could be the only one in the township of Uxbridge, but I respected what our mayor, and we voted for him to be in that position. I liked how he responded. And yes, I do agree with the Ward 3 councilors saying that you sure have somebody with experience, but in the aspect of what the mayor's response was, why he chose Ward 4 councilor instead of thinking going down the road of the regional councilor, that's where I come in. And when the Ward 2 councilor made that comment about let's go how we used to go, well, you all voted a while ago 100% that we should go for 1 year this method. And to come back 3 months and say, oh, can we redo this? It's like we have a process already with the municipal law, which Debbie and Catalina go through. I don't think when you've already 100% passed it through a few months ago, I don't think you should have to bring it up again. What's the difference from 3 months from now? Especially when the Ward 2 councillor had that opportunity at that time, if he didn't like it, to ask for a recorded vote at that time. So, my question is, think of the future a little bit more before you act upon. And I do respect each of you, and I appreciate what the Ward 2 councillor was going for, to not be confused or whatever, and then jumping for the emergency. But I think that we should just leave it for whatever you decided at that time. Each of you take your turns, so the mayor can make the right decision of December of 2019, whoever that may be, and then you're still going to be voting. So if you have an issue with that, then I think at that time. But that's just my novel now.
Okay. Thanks, Gail. Appreciate it. Any other questions? Okay. We ready for confirming bylaw there, Bruce? Okay. I know. Thanks.
Confirming by law, first reading and second reading, moved by Bruce Garrett, seconded by Todd Snooks, that leave be granted to introduce bylaw number 2019-028, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of its regular meeting of council on February 25th, 2019, and the same be read a first and second time.
All those in favor? Okay. Third reading?
Third reading, moved by Bruce Garrett, seconded by Todd Snooks, the bylaw number 2019-028 be now read a third time, finally passed, and the mayor and clerk duly sign and seal same.
Okay.